Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Adegoke. Let's begin today with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Sunday, protesters in Burkina Faso's capital Ouagadougou burned and looted the headquarters of President Roch Kabore's political party. It happened as sustained gunfire rang out from military camps in Burkina Faso as mutinying soldiers demanded more support for their fight against Islamist militants. Hundreds gathered on the Place de la Nation in central Ouagadougou on Sunday to show their support for the military. Police later dispersed a crowd of around 300 people. Heavy gunfire at the capital, the Sangoule Lamizana camp, which houses a prison whose inmates include soldiers involved in a failed 2015 coup attempt, began at least as early as 5 a.m. The government on Sunday confirmed the gunfire at some military camps but denied reports that the army has seized power. Speaking on national television, Defense Minister General Barthélemy Simpore denied rumors that President Roch Marc Kabore had been detained. Sister to prominent Sudanese women's rights campaigner Amira Osman said armed men detained Amira during a nighttime raid on her home in the capital Khartoum. Osman's detention comes after what activists say has been a campaign of arrests of civil society and pro-democracy figures since a military takeover in October. United Nations mission in Sudan said on Twitter it was outraged by Osman's arrest, citing a pattern of violence against women's rights activists that risked reducing their participation in politics. At least 16 people were killed and 8 others injured after a fire engulfed an upmarket nightclub in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé, in the early hours of Sunday. The government said the incident was caused by the explosion of fireworks usually used in a nightclub, adding that this had caused the fire to break out on the ceiling, leading to further explosions and panic in the venue. The fire started about 2:30 a.m., according to the government statement, which said authorities had launched an investigation.
And now to our main stories for today. We begin in Burkina Faso. Well, at this time, it is unclear who is in charge of government, as multiple media reports say President Roch Marc Christian Kabore has been detained by mutinying soldiers. Gunfire had been heard overnight near the presidential palace and at barracks in the capital, Ouagadougou. But on Sunday, the government denied suggestions of a military coup or that the president was under arrest. As at now, the state television in the country is also said to be under military control, with soldiers surrounding the station in the capital.
Outside the presidential residence in Burkina Faso on Monday morning, several armored vehicles riddled with bullets and stained with blood. 4 security sources and West African diplomats say President Roch Kabore has been detained by mutinying soldiers. Heavy gunfire had been heard at his home in the capital, Ouagadougou, on Sunday night. Throughout the day, the sound of bullets had rung out from several military camps, where soldiers were demanding more support for their fight against militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Despite all this, the government has denied the army had seized power.
I strongly deny. First of all, the head of state has not been detained. No institution of the country has been threatened. So, as I said, these movements are localized. They are circumscribed, and we are following the evolution of those movements.
3 armored vehicles and soldiers wearing balaclavas were stationed outside the headquarters of the state broadcaster. Kabore has faced waves of protests in recent months. Frustration has been mounting over the frequent killing of civilians and soldiers by militants. Protesters came out in support of the mutineers on Sunday and ransacked the headquarters of Kabore's political party. The government declared a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. and closed schools for 2 days. But as the sun came up on Monday, it wasn't clear who is now in charge.
Well, joining us now for more discussions on this is Oluseyi Adeyemo, a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us. Well, my first question to you is, did you see this situation in Burkina Faso coming? I mean, judging from the unrest and dissatisfaction of the people to the government.
First of all, I would say that nobody will expect that there will be coup anywhere in Africa. But the truth of the matter is, it is clear that most of those who are managing Africa, particularly the West African sub-region, Sahel region specifically, are obviously not doing a very good job. You cannot allow for your people to be killed on a regular basis. And I am very, deliberate by saying Sahel region, because what is happening in Cote d'Ivoire right now is also happening in Nigeria, it's happening in most of the Sahel region. You can't continue to allow your people to be killed on a daily basis. The army obviously are frustrated because it is obvious that they're not getting enough implement, enough supply, enough support by government. They're not getting the right engagement they ought to get. And they obviously are frustrated because they're unable to deliver on their mandates. And I'm not surprised that this is happening, because it is obviously an outburst of frustration coming from the military.
Well, this is the latest, in a series of military takeovers that has rocked the West African region. I'm talking Mali, which, was 2 times, Guinea also. What does this say, about the effectiveness of democracy in this region?
You see, democracy obviously is a good system of government, but it's not enough to have a system of government. Is that system of government working for you? Have we really tested this? Have we engaged enough to be satisfied? For instance, a lot of people have clamored for regional governance in Nigeria. We've not looked at it, because the truth of the matter is what we have right now is obviously not giving us the kind of dividends, the kind of result, the kind of gains that we expect. We cannot be running a system that is not giving us what we want. And we keep saying democracy, democracy, democracy. Democracy is good. But how are we operating democracy in West Africa? Are we getting the kind of gain? Look, when you talk about insurgency, when you talk about unrest, you're talking about food. Farmers are being chased out of their farms. They cannot farm. You're talking about poverty. You're talking about hunger. And hungry people are very angry people. And so what you have right now is, because of the incursions coming from the north into the Sahel region, people are being denied of the opportunity to do what they usually love doing, where people will go to farm. And we make a lot of our living out of farming. But right now, you have a situation in most of the West African countries where people are unable to go to their farms because of the unrest that is going across West African sub-region. So these things are interwoven. So it's not enough to just say democracy. The important thing is this thing working for the people? Are they benefiting or getting the right gains that they expect to get from governance?
Yeah, as much as it is a political issue, it's also a security issue. But, regional body ECOWAS and even the international allies have, in other situations, turned to sanctions as a way of punishment. But it appears, this is not bordering the Burkina Faso military. Are sanctions really enough, to deter soldiers from doing this?
It is obvious it's not enough. And one of the things that I think the ECOWAS body needs to do is to also clamp down on democratically, elected government. You see, enough of saying, oh, when the people in uniforms come into power, they're illegal. They're also citizens of that country. Now, if you have a situation where somebody that is democratically elected into government is failing, there must be mechanism, there must be a move by the regional body to sort of reprimand, to sort of punish, to sort of talk against. And equity must be seen to be coming into play. People must see the fact that ECOWAS is really, doing what they can to ensure that the people who really is the most important in all of this are getting the kind of dividends and reward they ought to get. Because you see, if at the end of the day, the only time you shout is when the military come in, then you are gradually and steadily losing the trust of the people. It is clear to me that the people of West Africa are no longer, trusting the ECOWAS body, because at the end of the day, they only come speaking when it is the time of the military. What are they doing when those who are democratic or supposedly democratically elected into government are failing? What is ECOWAS doing?
All right, then. Thank you so much, Oluseyi Adeyemo, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're still in West Africa, and residents in the village of Apiate are questioning the police version of events after a terrible explosion on Thursday last week. Now, this blast flattened their entire village when a truck carrying explosives detonated. They are now counting their losses.
In a village shattered by a truck explosion, Asemeni Ken walks through the wreckage where his girlfriend once lived. She was among at least 13 people killed in Ghana on Thursday when explosives being carried to a gold mine detonated. Another 180 were injured and around 500 homes destroyed.
I'm feeling sad in my heart, so I will give thanks to God. Everything, I don't know how even though when I stand here, something can happen to me. So I don't know. I should give thanks to God.
Amid the rubble of Apiate, residents are demanding answers from the government.
This is my family house.
The vast stretch of rubble, timber and twisted metal that was once the town of Apiate holds many memories for Pastor Derek Ashon. He points to the blown-out frame of his family home, still bearing a poster from an event his parish held in happier days.
We are looking forward to it that the government will really take this matter to the level that will bring satisfaction to the people in this town, and for them to also move on in life, because they've virtually lost everything. They've lost everything. So the government should really do something as soon as possible and make sure the company in charge of that vehicle will bring to book, and make sure the company also pay for whatever damage and cost that they've caused the community.
Nancy Nyaka was preparing porridge at a roadside stall near the edge of the village in the mining region where she heard a loud noise close by. With her right hand and left leg wrapped in bandages, Nyaka said she was the driver of the truck that collided with a motorcycle, beckoning people to leave the area.
I saw the driver pushing the gates open, and when he got out, he ran into a shop and told the people to get out. I couldn't hear him from where I was, but I could see him gesturing for people to leave, so I also decided to leave. He kept saying something was about to happen. We called and called on people, but by the time they came, the worst had already happened.
The truck was owned by Spanish company Maxim, which has not commented on the matter. It was transporting 10 tons of explosives to the Shirano gold mine run by Toronto-based Kinroso Gold Corporation. Police say the truck was escorted by a Maxim car with a flashing light at the front and a police car behind. But several witnesses say they do not recall seeing the Maxim or police cars. They also questioned police claims that an officer had helped warn villagers.
The trial of Benin Republic's former immigration director in charges of abuse of office is expected to begin. Florent Edgar Agbo is accused of having illegally issued Beninese passports to foreigners. 7 other officials were also detained last month in connection with the case and have all been charged with forgery. Well, since his arrest, Mr. Agbo has been in police custody, and a police divisional commander has already replaced him as head of the Immigration Service. South Africa's military is investigating the cause of a fire at an Air Force base in Pretoria. National Defence Force says fire broke out on Sunday evening at about 7 p.m. local time at the Waterkloof Air Force Base after a suspected pipe leakage at a fuel storage site. Well, the fire was extinguished within an hour. According to the South African National Defence Force, the cause of the fire and the magnitude of the damage to the fuel depot will also be part of the investigation. Spokesperson Brigadier General Andres Mahapa, however, says no foul play is suspected. Local media in Eswatini is reporting that the country will destroy 10,000 Johnson & Johnson vaccines that have expired. According to the Health Ministry, AstraZeneca and Pfizer vaccines are still available and therefore vaccinations will continue. The Johnson & Johnson vaccines expired on Tuesday last week, and the current batch of Pfizer doses is set to expire next week. However, the country is expecting to receive more vaccines for its vaccination drive. Mozambican weather authorities say a tropical storm, which is likely to turn into a cyclone, is expected to hit the mainland through the northern province of Nampula. The authorities warn more than 500 people in central and northern regions could be affected, including displacement by floods, damaged properties and loss of crops, with many expected to need shelter, food and clothing. According to the weather authorities, some 76 health centers and other infrastructure in the country may be partially or completely damaged by the storm. The country's National Institute of Meteorology said the storm, which hit Madagascar on Saturday, was already in the Mozambique Channel and was progressively moving towards the coast. Well, Uganda's economy has fully reopened after nearly 2 years of closure for some businesses. Bars, nightclubs, theatres and other sections of the entertainment and night economy were officially closed in March 2020. Some bars and other entertainment centres had been secretly operating, while others permanently shut their doors. Monday also marks the lifting of the dusk to dawn curfew, except for motorcycle taxis known as border borders, which are only allowed to operate until 7 p.m. local time. President Yoweri Museveni had, in his end-of-year national address, directed that the rest of the economy could reopen 2 weeks after schools had resumed in-person classes. Well, joining us now is Zara Namuli, Ugandan journalist, for more on this. Hello, Zara. Thank you for speaking to us. This brings much relief to those who have been affected by this shutdown for close to 2 years, isn't it?
Yes, I can confirm the excitement is ripe and everyone is excited. We don't know what day one of the opening of the nightclubs, the bars, and the deleting of the curfew will mean for so many Ugandans, but we hope to see how that unveils in a few minutes from now. Nightlife opens at 7 p.m. today, so we will be visiting some of those places to find out how they are coping. But during the day, we've tried to visit some of them. They were painting, refilling their counters. We found some of them unfortunately had closed business. Mostly the bars had become rentals, like residential places. Some had opened, had turned into various things. Some of them could not handle the rent arrears that had accumulated for over 2 years. So they closed shop, shifted to other areas. So the announcements have been going on social media. Some have been having drives through the city, notifying their customers where they have gone to from the old places. So we think it will be fun to so many people. Of course, I can say this is opening officially, but people have been hanging out, of course, under closed doors. But this literally meant you had to go into running battles with police and the security, other security organs, because this was illegal at that time. But the bars open officially today. You're allowed to move past 7 p.m. Those who are driving, starting today, apart from the motorcycles commonly known as borders in Uganda that will have their curfew still on, starting today. Their curfew will go on from 7 p.m. They're not allowed to be on the road. But then we see that most people that go to bars use these motorcycles for transport. So we don't know what this will mean for them. I don't know if some of them will be sneaking, around to work, because the revelers will not be walking from one bar to another. At the end of the day, they will need the motorcycles to open. So there is a campaign to see that actually these two finally open. But for security reasons, government says they cannot allow the borders or motorcycles to continue working past 7 p.m. until the situation has come to normal. Remember, there was just two bomb attacks in the capital, Kampala, that claimed lives. So the situation is still tense with what is going on in neighboring country, DRC and all that. So they say most border or motorcycle riders are actually fearing the wrong people. That's why they will still remain under lockdown, even when the whole economy is actually opening today.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Zara, for that detailed response. Zara Namuli, Ugandan journalist, thank you again. Egyptian hieroglyphic teacher Hoda Abdelaziz is educating young boys and girls on how to decipher hieroglyphs on ancient walls. Once confined to teaching in advanced academic studies, she is hoping her teachings will help remind new generations of their rich ancient Egyptian heritage.
Know your heritage is the message of Egyptian hieroglyphic teacher Hoda Abdelaziz. Following up on this message, the Egyptian artist has produced a curriculum for anyone who wishes to learn language used by ancient Egyptians for over 5,000 years, the teaching of which has mostly been limited to formal academia.
It started around 5 years ago when I took the children to visit museums and art galleries, explaining to them how it all started, how it was forgotten for a time, and how they were rediscovered. I found huge interest from the students, which led me to delve deeper into the topic, and it gave me the push to work on a curriculum that can be taught to students in school.
Abdelaziz's classes aim to educate the masses not just on how to understand the language, but also to study the principles of art history across the ages.
I chose hieroglyphics because we should keep the old Egyptian language. Ancient Egyptians spent 5,000 years using it and preserving it, but after many occupations and changes, Egyptians seem to have forgotten their language. I'm calling for us to remember our Egyptian identity, to know our language, not wait for anyone to translate it for us.
Abdelaziz, who has been a teacher for over a decade, has been developing her program for 5 years and began live sessions over a year ago.
The beauty of this is that each symbol has a meaning. The symbol represents something in nature and shows how much the ancient Egyptian, sanctified Egyptian heritage and used to appreciate nature.
The program offers theoretical and practical learning, as well as field trips to museums and archaeological sites.
I am so happy today that I began to learn the hieroglyphic language. I know that it is a difficult language, but I would like to learn it because it is the language of my ancestors from the time of the pharaohs.
She has also developed a curriculum which will be used in some local and international schools across the country.
And just before we go, a man who survived stowed away beneath the nose wheel arc of a cargo plane is said to be conscious and able to communicate, and he is currently receiving medical treatment in hospital. He was discovered on the Cargolux freight flight, which flew from Johannesburg to Amsterdam via Nairobi. Well, police have not yet confirmed his age and nationality, but in the meantime, communication is ongoing with South African and Kenyan authorities to establish where he boarded. Well, it's very unusual for stowaways on long flights to survive due to the cold and low oxygen at high altitudes. In the past 5 years, 7 stowaways have been discovered on planes in the Netherlands. Only 2 of them were alive. And that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.